Technical issue.
I know things no one knows.
How are you?
So good. How are you?
No, what's wrong?
No, nothing.
Oh, nothing.
Just, computery stuff.
Yeah.
Sure.
Everybody understands. Everybody has had a computer, and it's okay.
Okay, good.
How was your week?
It was good. It was a blur. I can't believe we're halfway through October.
Right.
What?
Right.
I'm like somewhere in March still, and here we are. The year's almost over. So.
Yeah. I know that I spent most of the year, I guess, in this seat right here.
Yeah.
So.
How's that?
Yeah. I'm okay. I like it. Actually, everybody's complaining about all this isolation and shit, and I have to tell you, working from home, not dealing with all that shit is fucking cool. I like it.
Hey, you're not wearing your brace.
I'm not. Actually, I wasn't last week either. I got that. So I do have to wear it. So if you see me out with it on, I'm not faking it. The doctor said I should take it off intermittently for, use. And so I take it off for this show, and I take it off during the day sometimes, but I mostly keep it on. I have to sleep with it on, because if I don't, I've tried sleeping without it, and it hurts my shoulder the next day.
Right.
So yeah. So
Are you a night sleeper?
it really depends on the medicine that they've been giving me. I've been sleeping pretty well, but like during the day, which sucks. I don't like doing that. Do you have a dog?
Nope.
You ever had a dog?
We had lots of dogs growing up. My mom,
Yeah.
they still have dogs. They have Great Pyrenees and German Shepherds.
You name any weird stuff that your dogs did?
I have one really gross story. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So we grew up in an old farmhouse. There was a lot of land. And my mom started babysitting a son of friends of hers. And they were like children's psychologists and just next level. So when you're like, you feel nervous watching their kid because you're like, am I going to do damage? And you guys are doing it all right. And so
The answer is yeah. You're just gonna fuck up kids.
might be bad. So my mom
The
was
real world's gonna do it too. So don't worry about it.
Real eclectic, and So my brother went through a phase where, as he was potty training, he didn't like to go potty inside. He'd like to go potty outside.
Yeah, I still don't. I still
Totally
go out.
fine.
Yeah.
We lived on land, no big deal. So my mom's just cleaning, and Tommy, the little boy, looks at my mom with this just look of sheer shock and grotesqueness. And she looks outside, and as my brother is pooping, the dog is eating it right before it touches the ground.
That's a twofold story. That's your dog story and your brother's story. Oh my God, that's horrible.
It's awful. It's so funny. And this kid was like traumatized. My mom was like,
That is a fuck. Like the more you look at that situation, the more fucked up it gets. Oh man.
gross. That dog.
So Katie's brother, now that is on the internet and will stay alive. Story will stay alive forever. You're welcome.
My mom, it's that story that my mom likes to tell everyone anyways when he's around. Like she has one on me too that I'm not ready to share, but she loves.
That tops my story. I mean, my dog got out of her cage once while we were gone, and got on the roof and actually got on the news that night. But no, that story, I like your story better. Do you want to hear another story about another dog?
I do.
So from mirror.co.uk, the headline is: a woman mortified after Labrador finds sex toy during walk and won't let it go. Um, so
No.
it goes on to say, it's no secret that when dogs find a toy that they love, it can be pretty tricky to get it off of them. Unfortunately for one dog walker, the pooch they were taking care of took a liking to a rather embarrassing item. Clara Robson was out walking a Labrador named Charlie and thought he was playing with a stick. He kind of was. He looked like he was having a great time, so she decided to snap a photo to send to his owner. Upon closer inspection, she soon realized that the one-year-old pup had actually found a sex toy and was carrying it around in his mouth. Now, there's pictures of this. There is an adorable yellow lab, 1 year old puppy, looks super happy with a big, giant purple dildo hanging out of his mouth.
Yeah.
It's a great story. I think it's going to be my next profile pic if they let it. As if that. What's that?
Speaking of people having inappropriate along those lines, I just read a story on some like mom blog of a mom who got a message from another, like her daughter's friend in class mom that was like, I think this might be yours and your daughter might fit in your stuff. This little girl got into her mom's bedside drawer and found what she thought was some sort of ring for her, and it was not. And she wore it all day at school and then gave it to her friend at the end of the day.
Oh my.
Nobody noticed. Or were they just so like shocked they didn't know what to do? Like, let's just let this one go and hope that.
Yeah, I'd look at it and I'd be like, oh, that's fine. Yeah, whatever.
And 2 + 2 is.
So as if that weren't enough, the 33-year-old, the dog sitter, then spent the next 15 minutes chasing Charlie around attempting to retrieve the toy. So she joked that it was especially hard to catch it as it bounced everywhere.
Oh boy.
Clara desperately tried to get rid of the unwanted item, but before she could kick it out of reach, another dog decided to join in on the fun.
Oh my God.
Eventually she distracted Charlie enough to get rid and hide the sex toy.
Charlie. Oh boy. Oh boy.
So she's of the incident. She says straight away it was like, oh my God, Charlie, put that down. Please put that down, which made him want to play with it more.
Of course.
Which was like me and when my mom told me to stop playing with it, it just made me want to play with it more too. So this is a Higher Minds podcast. I'm Papa Darby.
I'm Katie.
Hi.
Hello.
How is everybody?
Hello there, neighbor. Oh gosh.
Oh, it's October.
Yes.
It is, as you said before, and we are on the second episode of our spooky series.
Spooky.
Those are spooky fingers. Spirit fingers, spooky fingers.
Very simple. Some go up, some go sideways.
Yeah.
That's not really how you tell.
Yeah, no. I think it has to accompany the sound. Ooh.
Ooh.
Katie, what are we talking about?
This week is The Conjuring.
The Conjuring.
A little spookier than the last one to me.
Yeah. Yes.
There was more like jumpy moments for me for this one.
Yeah.
I feel like I did pretty good.
Yeah. So
I
yeah,
was like a little bitch the whole time. I tried not to.
Yeah. So we watched this, and what are your, other than it's spooky, what are your takeaway impressions?
This one did feel a couple things towards the ends were questionable, but this one felt more like it could be true. The other one definitely felt like
sensationalized.
Yeah. Maybe it's because I read about it too much before I watched it too.
Well, what you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it was research.
Overall, I enjoyed this one more, I think.
More?
I didn't like the doll. Don't make me watch a doll one.
This was one of my favorite scary movies. Most scary movies I can't stand because it's ridiculous. This one, less ridiculous, and it's based on a true story.
Yes.
And it again features the fucking Warrens, Ed and Lorraine, which we'll talk about next week.
Ooh,
I have feelings about the Warrens.
Yes.
But I'm not going to tell you about right now.
Yeah. Tell me next week.
Yeah. Tune in. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Yeah. So
So what we're gonna do is you're gonna tell us the movie,
Yeah.
what happens in the movie, why it was such a good movie, and then I'm gonna tell you the real life story behind everything.
Okay, cool. I read a little bit about it, so I'm excited to hear a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, in a snapshot, the Conjuring came out in 2013, and it was by James Wan, directed, and written by Chad and Carrie Hayes.
Didn't James Wan do the 1-2 with Jackie, not Jackie Chan, Jet Li? Is that him?
I don't know, but I feel like we had brought him up last time.
You did? I don't remember. I don't remember. Honestly, I'm not going to remember tonight what we said right now. So that's the way I roll.
Part of the show. Well, you won't either. So there's a Conjuring franchise. So there's more than one, more than two, more than three. Looks like a lot of them were connected to this.
Mm-hmm.
It was a creepy basement full of creepy creeps.
Well, I think I don't know if you're going to include it, but the opening scene is like something that normal movie makers would put at the end because it sets up for the sequel.
Oh, yes.
Or one of the sequels.
You know, I don't know that I actually put. Let me see. I'm trying to be a little bit taller. I need like a chair that spins up a little bit, like
Skilo over
the
there.
hair salon chairs where it's like, and you're like,
Do you remember Skilo?
Skilo?
I wish I was a little bit, or I wish is the name of the song?
No.
I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a ball. I wish I had a girl that could. I would call her. Wish I had a rabbit in a hat with a bat. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that song.
That's funny.
That was Darby Dance.
Okay. So, it released in July 19th, 2013. And I thought this was crazy. It brought in $319 million. That's a lot of money. Maybe I don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. But I'm like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that is a lot. And it did a lot. I mean, obviously, it spawned a bunch of franchises. It brought the Warrens back into focus. It brought this house back into focus because this isn't the first time that particular house has been filmed, yes, but been in public attention, I should say.
Okay, all right. So, 71, plot begins. Roger and Carolyn Perron move into this farmhouse that is
Perron. I like to know how that's spelled, but yes,
okay.
please.
Perron. Was that right though? I said that
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm. I think so. Maybe not. Maybe it's
so
Perron.
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 That would be funnier.
Aaron.
So move into this farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island with their 5 daughters. No boys, 5 daughters.
That's a lot of estrogen.
Nancy, Christine, Cindy, and April. Doesn't the sex of a child come strictly from the father?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's all on him. So it starts out, they're pulling in the driveway, and their dog Sadie refuses to enter the house. Just doesn't want nothing to do with it. First red flag, you should always trust a dog. About people, about places. I just feel like that's the thing. So
before that though, the sequel thing we're talking about starts with the Warrens and Lorraine talking to a couple of college chicks who invited a doll into their invited a spirit to inhabit a doll, which turns out to be Annabelle, which spawned a bunch of sequels and stuff. And if you're watching this, I'm sure you've seen Annabelle and you know what the fuck I'm talking about.
yeah, because I don't. That was like too much for me. I don't actually know. I still never know.
So sorry I interrupted. Sadie will not go in the house.
Yeah, she just doesn't want to go in the house. And so Nancy and Christine, 2 of the middle girls there, were playing a game of hide and clap. That was traumatizing enough for me. We never played hide and clap. Have you ever played hide and clap?
Nope.
Okay, never
Sounds
heard.
fun though.
I mean, sounds like cheating, but that's fine. So while they're playing this game of hide and clap, they find a boarded up entrance to a cellar. Why is it boarded up? So paranormal activities and events start to occur there within the first few nights. All of the clocks stop at exactly 3:07 a.m. Birds are now just flying into their house and like snapping their neck. That's not good. And poor Sadie is found dead in the backyard.
Yeah.
I
We
knew
don't
I
know
didn't
how,
like it within
mysteriously.
the first 5 minutes.
What's that?
I said I knew I didn't like it within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Why is the dog gotta die? So
I hate cruelty of any form. I especially hate cruelty to the vulnerable, dogs in particular. But I always find that kind of something like that happening, like the death of a dog is killed, or a child or something, and God forbid a child is hurt in the context of the movie, it generally is a movie that I will end up liking because of the emotional investment, because that makes me feel horrible. But a movie is about taking you out of your world, and that, for me, that does that.
yeah, because you're instantly emotionally invested.
Yeah.
Poor dog. So yeah, Sadie's found dead by one of the youngest girl in the movie. So one night, Christine encounters a spirit that only she can see. Definitely scared her, obviously. And so it was prompting her to claim that the spirit wanted her family dead. So she's crying, screaming, telling Dad this, and everyone's like, oh my God, you've had a bad dream.
Because that's upsetting to a little girl.
It obviously would be, because she sat up and clear as day was horrified. Her sister couldn't see it. She actually stood up and walked over there. Ooh, someone told me there was a spirit standing there. I ain't going over there to like do this in the doorway.
Oh, I would. I've gone on ghost tours and stuff, and done that kind of stuff.
Really hope we're together, something like this ever happens, so you can be the one to do it. And I'll sit there frozen, like, ah! So just so we all know our places if this ever happens. So another night, Carolyn hears clapping in the hallway. This damn hide and clap. It got me all fucked up.
That's the only thing they did in that fucking house, is just hide and clap.
Yes, and pull people's feet, and I don't like any of it. So when she goes to investigate the clapping, she becomes trapped in the basement by the spirit. So at that same moment, Andrea and Cindy, Cindy's the youngest.
Who's that? The mom?
Carolyn, yes.
Yeah.
So the mom. I know with 5 girls and a mom, the names do jumble together. Cindy is the youngest. Carolyn's the mother here. So at the same time as she's trapped in the basement by the spirit, Andrea and Cindy are attacked in their bedroom by a spirit that is the one that they think Christine encountered, the same one that swooped her into saying, you know, I want your family dead. So Carolyn decides to reach out. It shows that she kind of went to a class that they were, Ed and Lorraine Warren were speaking at, and decides to contact them. And they've recently investigated this possessed doll, Annabelle. That was horrifying. Why did she have lip gloss on? Ugh, there were so many things I didn't like about it.
Annabelle is a real doll. Annabelle is not what it looks like, though. They use that doll because it looks creepier, but Annabelle is a Raggedy Ann doll, a very large one. Yeah. And Ed and Lorraine Warren did go and give these lectures at colleges.
Yeah.
Like I said, the Perron house is real, and all of these and most of these events are actually occurred.
That is it's just crazy. I'm so glad this has not happened to me.
Oh, I would love to be a part of something like this.
I know you would. It's blowing my mind. I don't want to purposely be scared. I don't want to accidentally be scared either. I'm just happy you're not scared.
Well, for me, it's if you can see these kind of things, and if you can witness these kind of things, that means it's quantifiable. And if it's quantifiable, that means you've discovered something new that humans have never ever discovered before.
In you.
Well, whether it's whether it's like a new form of matter, a new like creature in a light spectrum or another dimension or something, or an actual this dimensional world or
Yeah.
this dimension and a person actually dies and that actually happens. Like whatever it is, if you can quantify it and test on it,
That's
it'd be great. I would love to do that.
I'd be more apt to go ghost hunting knowing I'm going into this situation than this be brought upon me in a new home I purchased. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would do better that way.
Yeah.
I signed up for it.
Yeah,
Did you ever, have you gone to the Mansfield prison where they did Shawshank?
No. I didn't end up.
It's so close to home. I'm always so mad I never went.
Yeah, me too. And I want to go. And I was going to go with my daughter, but you have to be 18 to go.
Really?
It's either 18 or 21 because they do alcohol or something. But instead, we went to the Stanley Hotel last year.
Yeah. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
Those pictures were beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, and you had some questionable things in your pictures. I remember sharing them.
Go look it up. We have it.
Go look that one up. So
a year ago. Wow, it's been a year.
A year, isn't that wild? This year is just poof gone. It's been like the longest fast year of my life.
Lots of content.
Yeah. Phew. So the Warrens agree to take her case and come check out her house. So I said that twice. So a needle pulling thread. That's what happens to me after that. So they conduct a initial investigation and conclude that, in fact, the house is going to require an exorcism. But they need some authorization from the Catholic Church and further evidence before they can proceed. So,
because the Warrens were all about bureaucracy.
Oh, the Catholic Church. I'm uncertain about them.
I'm not. I'm totally sure.
Oh, yeah. Let me rephrase that. I'm definitely sure. But I'm definitely not sure how to word it. So the movie definitely portrays that Lorraine is concerned by several things immediately walking into the house. And they discover that the house once belonged to an accused witch, and her name was Bathsheba Sherman. And
Bathsheba Sherman, real person.
Yes. And who says here is a relative of Marytown Eastie. I should have looked her up. I still can. It's not too late. So anyways, she is who sacrificed Bathsheba is who sacrificed her week-old child to the devil and then killed herself at 3:07 in the morning on 1863.
Now, in addition to Bathsheba Sherman being an actual person who lived, Bathsheba is also a character in the Bible.
Yeah.
And I remember that I took a few Bible classes in college, and that name rang a bell, and I had to remember. And I looked it up, and Bathsheba was the wife of a soldier that David coveted, King David, and David ended up sending her husband to the front lines to die so he can have her. It was one of his sins or something. Apparently, historically, that's true too.
For a long time.
Yeah. So that's who historically Bathsheba was.
Okay. This witch. Just kidding. So, she, before she kills herself, it's the morning after, she'd cursed anyone who might take her land. So this is proven to be true. So they find numerous reports, or find reports of numerous murders and suicides in houses that were built on this property, not just like the parents' house, but anyone who's lived on said property. So to gather more evidence to send off for their approval, Ed and Lorraine placed cameras. What were they, just like sensor? It's like they went off as things walked by. Yeah. I don't know how that exactly worked, but so they send up cameras, bells.
I think they were
around the house.
Heat sensor cameras. Like if it got too hot or too cold, it would set it off or something like that.
Because it wasn't triggered by the little girl, but by the spirit.
Yeah.
not really worked, but
They were ghost camera. I don't know.
it worked. So with they had an assistant, Drew Thomas, and a police officer, because the police were involved, who was an officer, Brad Hamilton, who kind of thought it was malarkey for a while. It was a breeze. And so one morning, as Ed and Drew and Roger take the kids out, Bathsheba appears in Carolyn, the mother's room, and vomits her blood into Carolyn's mouth, causing her to become fully possessed. I would probably become possessed too if someone threw up in my mouth. Anything, doesn't have to be blood. I'm certain I would become possessed.
Yeah.
That's so foul. So that was the first part I really didn't like. Second, I didn't enjoy that the dog died. So that night, the group sees Cindy sleepwalking, and
The youngest daughter.
You know what I mean? And she sleepwalks into Andrea's room, one of the other girls, and so from the EVPs coming from like the radios they had set up so they could listen into each room individually.
EVP,
they hear
electronic voice phenomena.
Fancy. You know that without me having to say it. So they hear this spirit luring Cindy into the wardrobe. This wardrobe was left in the home. It was not their own. And she revealed,
a lot of their furnishings were left in the from the previous owner.
Yeah, including that whole basement area was chock full of weird leftovers. Mm-hmm. So bummer. That was also where the furnace was that kept going out, and the house was always cold, so it kind of forced Dad to go down.
Well, if you remember, the furnace didn't go out. It was just the house was cold.
Oh, yes. But I kept thinking to myself, I mean, this is boarded up, but if something was wrong, like, where did they think the furnace was?
Yeah. I didn't realize it, or I didn't think about that being a loophole, but yeah, there's a loophole right there.
I look for loopholes to make me feel better about this could be made up. So, so they grab this black light and they're looking for the footprints to see where exactly they went because they can't find poor little Cindy. And it reveals that there is a secret passage inside the wardrobe, but it wasn't cool like the tween books. You know what I'm saying? It didn't take you to a magical wonderland. It took you to a creepy hole in the wall. So that was horrifying too. That would not be a good spot for me to hide. So Lorraine enters this passage and falls through.
Before you get, that hole was who says it? Somebody says at that point that hole in the wall, that area behind the wall, was where Cody, I think was his name, Corey. Yeah, the ghost boy liked to hide when he was scared.
Yes, it didn't in this. There's Cindy, the youngest of the girls, finds a little kind of, it's not really a jack in the box, it's just like a music box
carousel type thing.
When you're spinning it, this mirror, and it's a spiral and a little clown's popping up, and she says that she can see the sad boy in it. And when Lorraine tries to do it, since she's a little more in tune, she in fact sees the little boy in the room behind her. So this is Sad Roy, Cindy's friend, and he used to hide in there. She said that's where he would hide when he was sad and scared. Yikes! So Lorraine enters and this passage and then falls through the floorboards right into the creepy cellar. So she then sees the spirit of a woman whom Bathsheba had long ago possessed and used to kill her child. So that was another part that made me jump, and I did not enjoy it.
Yeah, it was an old like German nurse ghost or
like
something.
Then boom, there she was right behind her, and it was not good for me.
Lots of jump scares in this movie.
Yes.
In this series, actually.
And I don't like to know what's coming. I don't like that. So the Perron family decides, you know what? Let's go to a motel while Ed and Lorraine take their evidence and maybe get some things handled here. So they take all their evidence to Father Gordon, their liaison at the Catholic Church. And
The one who okayed the exorcism.
yes, but he does then explain the approval has to come directly from the Vatican. So that's weird. There's a lot of this bringing weird for the Catholics here. So, because the Perron family aren't members of the church and the kids aren't baptized, this kind of was going to cause some slow ups.
Very generous, the Catholics are.
What'd you say?
Very generous, the Catholics are.
Yeah.
The Catholic Church is.
We have this evidence and video that you're being tormented by your home, but we need further approval because you don't go here. So sounds like a church. So the Warren's daughter, Judy, he does say he'll try and push it through himself. I'll give father, whatever his name is, that. He said he pushed that right through the Vatican. Can they do that? Is that even a thing? Is there like a main line to the Pope?
I don't know. I don't know. But
I'm sorry. I'm picturing everything. So the Warren's daughter Judy is attacked in their own home by Bathsheba utilizing Annabelle. Oh. So though Ed and Lorraine arrive in time to save her, Carolyn now is possessed. The mother is now possessed by Bathsheba and takes Christine and April back to the house. So these poor kids, their poor mom. Oh God. So Ed, Lorraine, and Brad find Carolyn in the cellar trying to stab Christine. What was it, like some old pair of scissors or something? Not what I would want to be stabbed with. And Roger and
what would you prefer to be stabbed with?
Something really sharp, not rusty and dull.
I would prefer to be stabbed with like a pillow.
Okay, well, if that was an option, yeah. Well, feather, stress ball. Okay, I can keep going, but I won't. Roger and Drew prevent her from doing so, muster up some strength, even though she's full on possessed. And they tie her to a chair with a sheet enclosed over her, added to the creepiness a lot. So Ed decides, you know what, we can't wait. This exorcism needs to happen now. And he realizes there's not enough time. And he decides to go ahead and do it himself.
He calls upon God to bestow upon him his warring powers.
Yeah, he had a little book they had in the car, luckily.
They switched between Latin and Spanish and Italian.
I was like, was he speaking in tongues? Like, I don't know what's happening right now. Because this is, I wasn't really sure. So something that's not in this so far is Lorraine had an experience. He kind of explains it. Ed explains it that every time she, does one of these, it kind of takes a piece of her, and she had this very traumatic last experience. So he's like all weird about her doing them and or being there.
Because she's part X-Man. Yeah.
I didn't see that. So he decided, let's do it. And through Carolyn, though Carolyn escapes and attempts to kill April, Lorraine is able to distract Carolyn from killing her daughter by reminding her of this special photo that they use very vibrant colors on every time they think of it, much more so than the actual movie, it felt like. So it was definitely looked happier. So she's like trying to get her to remember this happy place.
This picture was a picture of her family at a beach, and it does bring back memories of them playing in the sand and running along and stuff and laughing and having fun. Yeah.
Kill my own daughter.
I want to know who took that picture.
Yeah.
Nobody else was in that memory.
And the video. So,
I think it was just her memory. I don't think it was a video.
Who took the drone footage of that? I'm just kidding. So she distracts her from this, with this special memory, and that allows Ed to complete this exorcism. So she's just blood-covered sheet, ripping through, full-on possessed, chairlifting in the sky, And her husband's like, get out. Like, you can't have my wife. And he got all angry, and it was intense there for a minute. That was another real creepy part when her face switched from like mom to what, Bathsheba? Was that her coming through her?
Yeah. Yeah.
Her mouth, that was creepy. I don't know what they did, or if that was just her mouth with like some blood in it, but it was awful. The third part I really didn't like. So they complete this exorcism and save Carolyn and April by lifting this Bathsheba's curse forever. So returning home, Lorraine tells Ed that they, you know what, they gain approval to do that exorcism. They already did. So that's good. I mean, what would happen if they didn't? They didn't really say. What
She would have killed her kids,
yeah, I guess. Well,
or at least one.
but they didn't know they had that approval.
Oh,
You
if they didn't get approval, is
Yeah.
that what you said?
Like, what happens if you don't get approval? They're like, nah,
God doesn't love you, I guess.
you go to hell for doing it. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't
Actually,
know.
I probably won't, but you never know. Might strike me as curious one night. So they, are getting ready to have another case to investigate in Long Island. And before they leave, they have this creepy, it looked like a split level. So I don't know if it was a basement or just like another room, but it has a collection of all the items that he and Lorraine had saved from the past cases. And he puts that weird music box in there. And then as he goes and shuts the door, it opens and it starts playing.
Credits.
I'm seeing like, oof.
So that was a brief synopsis of the movie, The Conjuring.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, it was more jumpy than because I don't like to be scared. So I read about this whole plot before I even watched it, and it still made me jump several times.
Yeah.
So, you had said at a certain point, now from here on could be where it's exaggerated, but everything up to that was pretty spot on by multiple sources, because it does like very clear in the beginning go, this is a true story. So you like freshly remember like they're saying this shit happened. So is the daughter of Ed and Lorraine, is she the character in another movie?
Yes.
Okay, I wondered because they obviously show her being seen by the mother, like in the lake, like looks like she's floating under the water like a ghost, like in Hades from Hercules, where like all the spirits are like floating.
Yeah, throughout the possessor, Bathsheba is trying to distract and manipulate Lorraine Warren by making her fear for her daughter.
She does a good job.
So that was a brief synopsis of that movie. Now, a lot of the events in that movie, so the time period of the Perrons living in that house is 10 years. And so,
which I didn't know that either, because they kind of made it seem like this happened in a couple weeks.
Yeah. And so, and the Ed and Lorraine's involvement, it did last for a good long portion of that, but in segments, not like they were. The movie makes it seem like they are living there for a little bit, and that's not at all what happened. And a lot of the events, again, did happen, but the movie puts it together in a particular way, and in real life, it was a lot more disjointed. Which I am right now. I don't have any joints.
Me too.
So my source, I only got really one source because it had a really good information throughout all of it. I did cross-reference a little bit of it, but he seemed to be pretty spot on, is from the skepticalinquirer.org. So who are your sources, by the way?
Wikipedia, and I tried to look up a little bit more about Vatican approval, and it didn't really make sense. And I said I should research this later, and we should talk about the Catholic faith sometime. Would that be a good series or no? It feels like there's a lot going on there.
Touchy,
Touchy, but could be good.
Wow, I never thought about that as a series. That is, yeah, we should do that. So, the real story. In January of 1971, the Perron family, Roger father, Carolyn mother, and their 5 daughters, Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cindy, and April, like you said before, moved into the farmhouse on the outskirts of Burrillville, Rhode Island. The most frequent opposition, according to Andrea Perron's true story books, Andrea was the oldest daughter, and she wrote 3 books on the subject, was that of a woman with a broken neck who came to be wrongly popularized as Bathsheba Sherman. And yeah, I'll explain that. The Perron family claimed that paranormal experiences went on for almost 10 years until the family had to abandon the house in 1980. That's a long time to like settle into having to abandon the house.
Yeah.
The new owners of the house, Corey and Jennifer, the current owners, Corey and Jennifer Heinzen, were very interested in the farmhouse. According to several interviews, Corey fell in love with it after visiting the house before it had gone up for sale. Not surprisingly, Corey and his wife are also ghost hunters, and Corey feels that the house is a piece of paranormal history. Since moving in, Corey claims to have experienced the modern standard ghostly activities, doors opening and closing on their own, footsteps, knocking, and disembodied voices. He even claimed a black mist was witnessed, describing it as it looks like smoke. It'll gather in one area and then it will move.
And that's what Lorraine kind of said she saw upon like first entering the house, was this like black spirit that it like was attaching itself to each of them. The mom's mysterious bruises, the little girl like hand on her shoulder. So
yeah, and pretty much word for word, like that's how Lorraine describes it in the movie. So it's important to note that Norma Sutcliffe, who owned the house from 1987 until she sold it to the Heinzens in 2019, never claimed to have experienced any ghostly issues with the house. She backtracks a little bit. So, in fact, all Sutcliffe and her late husband claimed to have experienced in the show were they did a show on this, were slight vibrations of a door, a chair, and a bed. This was after living in the house for 18 years and is hardly the level of activity reported previously. But that is activity. And so I'm the type of person who does believe in paranormal, that there's things that we just don't know. There's things on a different spectrum that we can't see. And there's forces and there's energies just kind of going around doing what forces and energies do. Yeah. So whether that's like a human thing or just a natural occurrence of something, I don't know. But I do believe that it's there and that it is mostly misinterpreted as ghosts. But that is still the vibrations and stuff. It's still an occurrence. And I think that if you are a person that is more in tuned, because everybody has different mechanisms in their head. Yeah. So some are more attuned to different things. And if you're a person that is more attuned to that kind of energy manipulation, I would imagine that it would amplify it and be more. But if you're not, it would mute it and you'd get things like door, chair, and bed vibrations. Yeah. My opinion. So written by the eldest Perron daughter, Andrea, contained within her 3-volume series, House of Darkness, House of Light. In 2001, Andrea Perron released volume 1 of that book, and the subsequent books were in 13 and 14, 2013, 2014. In the opening chapter titled Prologue in Prayer, Andrea states, "It matters that this tale be told with honesty and integrity. The deaths of several figures have been attached to the history of the farmhouse, often cited as the case of the haunting activity." So the Black Book of Burrillville, a macabre book listing unusual deaths in the Burrillville area, such as murders, suicides, poisonings, etc. An entry for a Susan Arnold, that's the people who owned it for generations, the Arnolds were. And I want to add that this analysis is of Andrea's book, not of the movie.
Gotcha.
So there's different, it's understood differently, and I'll try to explain where the differences between her book and the movie are in this context. I'll do my best. An entry for Susan Arnold notes under the heading of Suicide by Hanging. April 13th, 1866, 3/2/1866, 50 years old, in an attic in her home, wife of John Arnold. So there are 2 potential Mrs. John Arnolds within the Burrillville area. Also within that the book, the Black Book. One is Abigail Cook Arnold, 1776 to 1869, who was 93 years old when she died. Although Abigail matches the age of the women who were searching for her death is listed as a result of old age, and her death occurred 3 years after the 1866 date. The second candidate is Susan Richardson Arnold, 1816 to 1866, the daughter of Dexter Richardson of Uxbridge, Massachusetts. Often, after much digging into her past and confirming a few details with a historian, Kent Spotswood, it's been established that this is the Mrs. John Arnold behind the hanging in the barn story, matching both the name and date of death. An obituary for Susan Arnold, wife of John, copied from the Pascoag, Pascoag Herald, dated 1866. The obituary describes Susan's death. Her husband had been ascending the stairs and found a storeroom locked. Thinking something was wrong, he went through a window into a shed roof and into another window, and there found his wife suspended from a wardrobe hook with a very small cord. It goes on to explain that Susan had a loaded gun, a dirk knife, and a vial of mercury in the room with her. She also laid out clothes for her funeral in another room. Susan Arnold's suicide also appears in the April 16, 1866 edition of the Evening Star. I don't know, that sounds suspicious. I think the husband did it.
Oh, who carries around mercury?
I know that if I'm going to die, I want mercury with me. The route Mr. Arnold took through windows to get to his wife is not possible with the structure of the farmhouse that we're talking about, either now or then. Also, according to the document titled Highway Districts in the Burrillville Tax Book from 1862, she and her husband, John Arnold, had a small house in Harrisville Road in District 1. The Harrisville farmhouse, the Conjuring house, is in District 6, several miles away. As far as the available records are concerned, Susan Arnold was not a member of the same Arnold family associated with the Harrisville farm or its barn. So that's probably not right either. John Arnold was the son of Edwin Arnold, but not the husband of Susan Arnold mentioned above. Since he was the son of Edwin, who had owned the farmhouse for a time, it is understandable that Johnny would have spent his early years in this house. According to his obituary from the Pascoag Herald, dated 1911, for several years he had not been in good health and latterly become despondent. In a fit of despondency, he took a dose of Paris of Green, and the efforts of a physician to save his life was unavailing. Paris of Green is a highly toxic crystalline powder that was used in pigments in paints, wallpaper, and fabrics. There are a few deaths associated with the house that are labeled mysterious, two of which involve people freezing to death, Edwin Arnold and Jarvis Smith. Perron mentions in her books, by way of her father, two men who froze to death underneath a blacksmith shop. Edwin Arnold, a former owner of the farmhouse, died of exposure in 1903. Who dies of exposure near their house? While walking home one night. He had been missing for 7 weeks until a hunter discovered his body. Edwin's remains were found about a mile and a half down the road, leaning against the stone wall of the Smith Aldrich farm. It appears he had been walking across farms, taking a shortcut home. He laid down to rest, but never woke up. I don't know, that's suspicious to me. 2 years prior, in 1901, the body of Jarvis Smith was found in a rickety shed beside the highway on the property of the Harrisville farmhouse. Smith had recently been on trial for the murder of Britton Rounds in October 1898, of which he was acquitted. Revenge?
Dun, dun, dun.
He had apparently been liquored up the night before and come to rest in the shed, which had stood about 200 feet from the farmhouse. Like Edwin, he never woke up. On a related note, the shed in which he died was torn down decades ago.
Wow.
Perron writes, now this one is bad. I didn't like reading this one.
Uh-oh.
But it's one of those emotional ones that, yeah.
So prepare my heart, is that what you're saying?
Which would absolutely result in a ghost if ghosts are the result of tragedy or trauma. Perron writes, Prudence Arnold, so young, few details of her life left to punctuate this tragic passing. It was later discovered that she had been raped and murdered by a local farmhand who then took his own life.
Hmm.
Later, this event is addressed later in the same volume. The fairest of them all, dear Prudence Arnold, was an innocent victim of evil, her rape and murder throat cut with a straight razor. This is both the most brutal event covered and the easiest for anyone to have researched. Prudence Arnold was the orphan child of Eber and Charlotte Arnold. Her father died when Prudence was a year old, and her mother died when she was 3. As we've stated in previous episodes, that the major occupation of most people was in some stage of dying. Most people just died. Actually, everybody died, but yeah. Anyway, Prudence had been taken as a foster child in the home of Annan Richardson. When Prudence Arnold was 11, William E. Knowlton, 22, followed her up to her second floor of her home and cut her throat with a straight razor,
Oh gosh.
nearly decapitating her. A jury of inquest was held on January 3rd, 1849, in which it was discovered that Knowlton killed her out of love and jealousy.
Okay.
When she refused to marry him, as she had allegedly promised 4 months earlier. 11. My daughter's 13.
Yeah.
And yeah, she changed her mind a lot when she was 11.
Yeah.
But an 11-year-old, a child, how are you? I mean, this guy was obviously disturbed and there's no reasoning. There's no reasoning. But a fucking 11-year-old that you get pissed at and want to kill because they said they were going to marry you. Oh my God. I can't. That's.
They can't even commit to a cereal they like. Like, you know what I mean? Come
Yeah.
on. Blech. That's gross. But people who have that problem are gross, and there's no real rhyme or reason to.
Yeah. I mean,
He's
he's not only a pedophile, he was obviously sick. And yeah, she did not deserve that. Anyway, her murderer tried to commit suicide with the same razor he used on Prudence, but found it was too dull. The fucking bitch. The self-inflicted wound was not serious, and Knowlton was taken to jail in Worcester. He did not kill himself. Perron, as well as other authors, relied heavily on anyone mentioned in the Black Book of Burreville with the surname Arnold. There seems to have been no further research to determine whether an Arnold was of the same family or a separate family with the same surname. There are very few records about Bathsheba Sherman, 1814 to 1885, including a few census records, an obituary, and her will. There is no birth or death certificate, as they were not issued during that time. Bathsheba Sherman was Bathsheba Sherman was born to Ephraim Thayer and Hannah Taft, making her a Thayer. Excuse me. Not an Arnold, although she still did live in this house. She married John Sherman and moved from the Thayer farm to the Sherman farm, where she lived out the rest of her days. They had 4 children: Julia, 1845 to 1847. Oh, 2 years old. Edward Francis, 1847 to 1848, 1-year-old. Herbert, 1850 to 1903, 13 years old. God damn. And George, 1853 to 56, 3 years old.
Okay. Anybody questioning them?
Yeah. Yeah. None of their deaths were listed in the Black Book of Burreville, and none were said to be suspicious.
No?
4 of them.
That sounds suspicious to me, and I don't know anything about the deaths.
None of the. Bathsheba died on May 25, 1885, of sudden paralysis, which likely meant a stroke. Or maybe it's her dead kids coming back to fucking kill her.
Possibly.
Her husband her husband Judson died in 1881, and again, nothing suspicious about his death is noted. Bathsheba married Benjamin Green a year later, but remained on the Sherman farm. Upon her death, Bathsheba was laid to rest in the Riverside Cemetery, now Harrisville Cemetery, next to her first husband. Her funeral services were officiated by Reverend A.H. Granger, pastor of the Fourth Baptist Church of Providence. Bathsheba never lived or worked on the Arnold Estate farmhouse, nor was she associated with the Arnold family. Lorraine Warren is often credited as being the first to name Bathsheba as a witch and the demonic entity haunting the Harrisville farmhouse, having gained the name through a psychic vision. However, Perron made it quite clear that her mother Carolyn is the one who first pointed a finger at Bathsheba as a source of evil. For example, while describing her how her mother had been searching through archives in the village of Chepachet, Perron states, they soon discover the identity of Carolyn's arch-rival and nemesis, one evil mistress of the house, Bathsheba Sherman. Based on what they learned of her life, she became the principal subject in death, the likely culprit, the Bad Witch. This takes place well before the Warrens arrived at the farmhouse and introduced themselves into the story. Notice it said, introduce themselves into the story. So Lieutenant Albert Carlo, who was portrayed by what's his name, the other cop, in the movie, was interviewed. Baggins in the interview. So now they're talking about a document. The author of this article is talking about a documentary that he did to research this, in which they interviewed the lieutenant. Baggins was the guy who did, I guess. Baggins does a voiceover stating, the officer tells us that the owner, just before Corey, had several 911 calls for mysterious illnesses. The officer then states, I think the last time I was here was maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I just know it was a constant for a guy who didn't seem to be all that ill. In the end, the Harrisville farmhouse simply doesn't have the tragic and gruesome history we've been led to believe. That is recorded. There's lots of tragedies that are recorded that are associated with the house in some way, in some form or another, but not directly attributed. So, I mean, there's still a lot going on there, is what I mean. If psychic energy were to be released from a tragic death, there'd be a lot there. When legitimate research is done by competent people, we find that the tragedies used to justify the hauntings of the farmhouse had been snatched away from other families of the area. This appropriation of history seems to have begun with a book released in 2009 titled Paranormal Realities by Keith Johnson. In it, Johnson talks about Prudence being murdered in the farmhouse, John Arnold committed suicide in the house, and both Jarvis Smith and Edwin Arnold freezing to death on the property. He also relates the tale of a witch who killed a baby, though he does not give her name. Bathsheba is spoken of later on in the chapter as a separate person under the name Bathsheba Green, which was her second husband's name. So
this crazy witch.
So what I just read kind of contradicts what I said right before. Kind of. I from what I read and what I researched, there is some connection to this place. Not as tightly wrapped as the movie or even Andrea Perron would say, but still associated with the house. That's what happened. The house is haunted. The current owners say it's haunted, albeit they are ghost hunters, and they want it to be.
Yes.
They are ghost hammers, and that house is a ghost nail. Anyway, good job.
Yeah. This they're interesting to me. I didn't realize how interesting ghost stories would be to me, but they are.
They're like true crime stories.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe my grown-up movie taste buds have changed. Maybe. So I know the ones that are supposedly true.
What's that?
But maybe it's just I like these ones that are supposedly true. It's interesting.
Yeah. I know of more than a few people who avoid horror movies and stuff like that altogether. And my opinion is that they're sad, they're scary, and they might make you feel something that you don't want to, but it's still an entire genre of art that you're cutting off from your life. It's it's still an expression of idea, and all ideas are valuable.
I guess. Yes.
It's better to have more information than less, is kind of what I mean.
I hear what you're saying.
And besides, I like it. I think they're fun. They don't make me feel like anything I don't want to feel. So if you want to feel this show and The Conjuring, all you have to do is tune to
highermindspodcast.com. You can conjure yourself over there and find all the links to our Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and send a little email at highermindspodcast@gmail.com. You can listen to us from Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud. And those are all still really good options. And obviously here, like, subscribe, share.
Like and subscribe. We
Do
need
that.
it.
Do that.
Yeah. Tell people.
Sharing is caring. So
The
those are
best support comes from viewers like you. Am I allowed to say that? Is that trademarked? PBS?
PBS Kids. I don't know.
We're providing a public service, so.
It really is. And
Yeah.
now it's the internet, so it's true. So.
And you know what? They get their support from viewers like me, so I kind of own it. So yeah, I could say that. From viewers like you.
And me.
And her.
And him.
Thank you guys. This has been the Higher Minds Podcast, and I'm Papa Darby.
I'm Katie.
We
See you
didn't do
next
that up top.
time.
Let's do that. We're gonna do that again. And I'm gonna cut it. I'm gonna put it up top.
Taste it.
Yeah.
The magic of YouTube.
Deuces, y'all.
Bye.